Welcome, my friend. Take a breath. Just breathe for a moment. You are here. You showed up today, and that already means something beautiful. Today's lesson is called The Rise and Fall of Adolf Hitler, History Explained. And I want you to know before we begin that this is a story about history, a story about how power can corrupt a human soul, a story about how entire nations, entire generations can be swept away by fear, by anger, and by one man's terrifying ambition. This is not an easy story, but it is an important one. And we are going to walk through it together, slowly, gently, with full understanding. So settle in, my friend. Get comfortable wherever you are. Maybe you are sitting at home. Maybe you are on a train. Maybe you are lying down after a long, tired day. Wherever you are welcome here. This space, this voice, this lesson, it belongs to you. And before we go deeper, I just want to say something to you. Learning English is not easy. It takes courage, real courage, not the kind you see in movies, but the quiet, daily courage of a person who keeps trying, who keeps showing up, who keeps listening, even when it feels hard. That is you, my friend. That is exactly you. And I see you. I really do. So let's begin, slowly, together. The year is 1889. 1889. In a small town in a country called Austria, a baby boy was born. His name was Adolf Hitler. And at that moment, nobody in the world could have known what that small baby would one day become. Nobody could have known the pain, the destruction, the unimaginable suffering that this one person would eventually bring to millions and millions of lives. He was just a baby, wrapped in cloth, sleeping in a crib. But history has a long memory, and the story of Adolf Hitler is perhaps the most studied, the most examined, the most discussed story in all of modern human history. Because when we understand how something this terrible happened, we become better at making sure it never, ever happens again. That is why we tell this story. Not to celebrate, not to glorify, but to understand, and through understanding, to protect the future. So let's go back. Let's go gently, slowly, back to the beginning. Adolf was born on April 20th, 1889. His father's name was Alois. His mother's name was Clara. And from the very beginning, young Adolf had a difficult home life. His father, Alois, was a strict man, a cold man, a man who believed in discipline above everything else. He did not show warmth easily. He did not speak gently. He was the kind of father who made a child feel small rather than loved. And little Adolf, he felt that. He carried that feeling. You know, there is something important I want you to understand here. Not as an excuse, not as a reason to forgive what came later, but as a human truth. The way we are treated as children, it shapes us. It shapes the way we see the world. It shapes the way we treat others. It shapes the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and who the world is, and whether we are safe or not. Adolf Hitler grew up feeling unseen, feeling unloved, feeling angry at a world that he believed had not treated him fairly. And that anger, over many, many years, grew into something monstrous. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let's slow down. Let's breathe. Take a breath with me now. Good. Let's go back to young Adolf in Austria. He was a child who loved art. Did you know that? Yes, Adolf Hitler as a young boy, he loved to draw. He loved to paint. He dreamed of becoming a great artist. He spent hours, just hours, sketching buildings, churches, landscapes. He had a genuine passion for beauty, for creation. Isn't that something to think about? A boy who loved beauty, who later became responsible for one of the greatest acts of destruction in human history? When he was a teenager, Adolf applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts twice. He wanted so deeply to be accepted, to be told, "You are talented, you belong here, you have a future." But both times he was rejected. The Academy said his work was not good enough, that he was better at architecture than painting. But he could not study architecture either, because he had not finished his basic schooling. Those rejections, they broke something in him. Or perhaps they broke something that was already fragile. He moved to Vienna, beautiful, grand, complicated Vienna, the capital city of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. A city full of artists, musicians, intellectuals, and also full of poverty, political tension, and deep social anxiety. Adolf lived there for several years, poor, drifting, sleeping in shelters, selling small paintings on the street just to survive. And in that city, in that poverty, in that loneliness, he began to read. He began to absorb ideas, political ideas, dangerous ideas, ideas about who was to blame for his failures, ideas about who was responsible for the suffering he saw around him. And the ideas he found were full of hatred. Now, my friend, let's pause here for a moment, because I want to teach you something about the English language, gently, naturally, the way a friend explains things over a warm cup of tea. In this story, we have already used many important words, words that are useful not just for understanding history, but for understanding life, for reading news articles, for watching documentaries, for having real conversations about the world. Let me walk you through some of them. The first word is ambition. 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 Say it slowly. Ambition. Ambition means a strong desire to achieve something, to reach a goal, to become something. We all have ambition in some form. Maybe your ambition is to speak English fluently. Maybe your ambition is to travel. Maybe your ambition is to give your family a better life. Ambition itself is not bad. Ambition is energy, it is drive. But ambition without kindness, ambition without conscience, ambition without boundaries can become very dangerous. Adolf Hitler had enormous ambition, but it was ambition without love, without compassion, without humanity. Now, repeat slowly after me. Ambition is a strong desire to achieve something. Say it again, slowly. Ambition is a strong desire to achieve something. Good. You are doing beautifully. Take a breath. The second word is rejection. 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 Let me tell you a small story now, a real story, about an ordinary woman named Maria. Maria grew up in a small village in Poland. She was not famous, she was not powerful, she was a school teacher. She taught young children how to read and write. She had a small house, a small garden, and a very large heart. When the Second World War began, when Hitler's army invaded Poland in 1939, Maria's entire world collapsed. Her village was occupied, her school was closed. Her students, some of them, were taken away. She lost neighbors, she lost friends, she lost people she had loved her whole life. But Maria did not stop. She continued to teach, secretly, in her kitchen, in her basement. She gathered children together, quietly, carefully, and she continued to give them something precious. She gave them words. She gave them knowledge. She gave them the ability to think and understand and communicate. She believed, even in the darkest time, that education was the most powerful form of resistance, that if she could keep the light of learning alive, even just a small flame, the darkness could not fully win. Maria is not in history books. You will not find her name in encyclopedias, but she existed. And people like Maria, they existed in their thousands. Quiet heroes, invisible heroes. People who refused to surrender their humanity, even when everything around them was inhuman. I think about Maria often when I think about this story, because the rise of Hitler was not just about one man. It was about a world that allowed it to happen. And the resistance to Hitler was not just about armies and battles. It was about ordinary people like Maria who kept their goodness alive. And maybe, in a quiet way, that reminds me of you. You are doing something today, something small but meaningful. You are learning, you are growing, you are refusing to stop. And that refusal, that persistence, is a form of courage that the world needs more of. Let's continue the story. Take a breath. Good.
Say it slowly. Rejection. Rejection means being told no, being turned away, not being chosen. And rejection, my friend, is one of the most painful human experiences. Every single person on this planet has experienced rejection at some point. You have, I have, we all have. The question is not whether we experience rejection. The question is, what do we do with it? Some people take rejection and use it as fuel. They say, I will work harder, I will improve, I will try again. And slowly, they grow stronger. Some people take rejection and turn inward. They become sad, yes, but they heal. They find new paths, new dreams, new beginnings. And some people, a very small number, take rejection and turn it outward. They look for someone to blame. They find a target for their pain, and they let that pain curdle into hatred. Hitler chose the third path. Repeat slowly after me. Rejection is the experience of being told no. One more time, gently. Rejection is the experience of being told no. Wonderful. You are listening so well. So Adolf Hitler was in Vienna, poor, angry, filling his mind with hateful ideas. And then, in 1914, the First World War began. The First World War, 1914 to 1918. A catastrophic war that pulled in most of the countries of Europe and killed millions of people. Millions. The numbers are so large, they almost stop feeling real. But each number was a person, a son, a daughter, a mother, a husband, a friend. Hitler volunteered to fight in this war. He served in the German army. And despite everything we know about who he became, in the war he was actually considered brave. He received medals for his service. He was a runner, carrying messages between military positions, one of the most dangerous jobs on the battlefield. And for the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged somewhere. He felt purpose. He felt brotherhood. He felt like he was part of something larger than himself. Then the war ended. Germany lost, and the aftermath of that defeat changed everything. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919. This was the peace agreement that officially ended the First World War, but it was not a gentle peace. It was a punishing peace. Germany was forced to accept full responsibility for the war. Germany was forced to pay enormous sums of money to other countries. Germany lost territory. Germany's military was severely restricted. And the German people, they felt humiliated. They felt crushed. They felt betrayed. When a person feels humiliated, they become vulnerable. When an entire nation feels humiliated, it becomes dangerous, because someone will always come along and offer them an explanation, an answer, a person to blame, a simple story that makes the pain make sense. Adolf Hitler was about to become that someone. Repeat slowly after me. The Treaty of Versailles humiliated the German people after the First World War. Say it gently. The Treaty of Versailles humiliated the German people after the First World War. Now take a breath. One more important word. Propaganda. Propaganda. Pro-pa- Propaganda. Say it slowly. Propaganda. Propaganda means information that is spread to promote a particular idea or point of view, often by exaggerating or hiding the truth. Propaganda is not education. Propaganda is manipulation. It takes people's fears and emotions and uses them to create a specific belief. Hitler and his movement were masters of propaganda. They used speeches, posters, radio broadcasts, films, rallies, massive theatrical rallies to spread their message. And the message was simple, dangerously simple. Germany is suffering, and here is who is to blame. Join us, and we will make Germany powerful again. Simple, emotional, appealing to people's pain and pride at the same time. Propaganda works best when people are already hurting, when people are already afraid, when people are already looking for answers. Now say it with me. Propaganda is information used to manipulate people's beliefs and emotions. One more time. Propaganda is information used to manipulate people's beliefs and emotions. Good. Very good. The book was not hidden. It was published. It was read. People knew what he believed. And still, he rose to power. That is perhaps the most chilling part of this entire story. Not that a hateful, disturbed man existed. History is full of hateful, disturbed people. The truly chilling part is that millions of ordinary people chose to follow him, that institutions designed to protect democracy gradually bent, cracked, and finally broke under the weight of his manipulation. How does that happen? Slowly, my friend. It always happens slowly. One small compromise, then another, until one day people look around and realize everything has changed. And they wonder, how did we get here? Let me slow down with you again. Let's breathe. I know this story is heavy. I know it carries weight. And I want you to know it is okay to feel something while you listen. In fact, it is good. It means you are paying attention. It means you are connecting to the human reality behind the history. Because history is not just dates and names. History is people. Ordinary, complex, flawed, beautiful people making choices. Some choices that led to healing, and some choices that led to devastation. And the reason we study history, the reason we sit with uncomfortable stories like this one, is not to feel sad for no reason. It is to carry those lessons forward, to recognize the warning signs, to be the kind of people who speak up, who think critically, who refuse to be swept along by propaganda and fear. You, my friend, by learning, by listening, by engaging with the world through language and understanding, you are doing exactly that. You are building the kind of mind that cannot be easily manipulated. And that is one of the most powerful things a human being can do. Now let's move forward in the story. After the First World War, Germany was in chaos. The economy was devastated. Inflation was so extreme that people were literally carrying wheelbarrows full of money just to buy a loaf of bread. Unemployment was massive. Political violence was happening in the streets. People were desperate. And into that desperation walked Adolf Hitler. He joined a small political group in Munich called the German Workers' Party. And very quickly, his ability to speak in public became clear. He was a remarkable speaker, hypnotic even. He could take a room full of tired, angry, frightened people and make them feel understood. He made them feel like their pain was real, that their anger was justified, that there was a reason for everything that had gone wrong, and that he, Adolf Hitler, had the answer. He rose through the group rapidly. He became its leader. He renamed it the National Socialist German Workers' Party, which in German became known as the Nazi Party. And the Nazi Party grew. Slowly at first, then faster, then with terrifying speed. In 1923, Hitler made an early, failed attempt to seize power in a dramatic confrontation in Munich. It is known as the Beer Hall Putsch. It failed. He was arrested. He was sent to prison. But prison gave him time to write. And in prison, he wrote a book called Mein Kampf, which in English means My Struggle. In that book, he laid out in disturbing detail his beliefs, his twisted vision for Germany, his vile hatred of Jewish people and others he considered inferior, his dream of German domination over Europe, his plan for a new world order built on cruelty and violence.
So let's keep going, gently, steadily. Hitler was released from prison in 1924. He served only 9 months of a 5-year sentence, and when he came out, he was more determined than ever. He rebuilt the Nazi Party. He refined his message. He learned from his failed coup and decided that this time he would come to power through legal means, through elections, through the system of democracy itself. And the conditions in Germany were helping him. The economy briefly improved, then collapsed again dramatically after the American stock market crashed in 1929. Suddenly, millions of Germans were unemployed again, desperate again, looking for answers again. The Nazi Party's support surged. In the elections of 1932, the Nazis became the largest single party in the German parliament, and on January 30th, 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Chancellor, Chancellor. It means the head of the government, the most powerful political position in the country. He had done it through speeches, propaganda, fear, manipulation, and the desperation of millions of people. He had reached the top. And what followed happened with breathtaking speed. Within months, he dismantled the democratic system that had brought him to power. He used a fire that burned the Parliament building, the Reichstag fire, as an excuse to suspend civil liberties, to arrest political opponents, to silence the press, to concentrate all power in his own hands. By August 1934, after the death of the German president, Hitler declared himself Führer, a German word meaning leader, but not just any leader, an absolute leader, a dictator with total, unchallenged power. Germany was now a dictatorship.
And the world was watching, but not yet acting. Let me pause here again for one of our slow practice moments, because I want to make sure these words are settling into your mind and body, not just passing through. The word dictatorship. Dictatorship. Dictate or ship. Say it slowly. Dictatorship. A dictatorship is a system of government where one person holds absolute power, where there are no free elections, no free press, no freedom of speech, where opposition is silenced, where the law bends to serve one person's will. It is the opposite of democracy. 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 Democracy is a system where power belongs to the people, where citizens vote, where leaders are accountable, where there are laws that protect individual rights. Repeat slowly after me. A dictatorship gives all power to one person. Say it again. A dictatorship gives all power to one person. Take a breath. Now try this one. Democracy gives power to the people. One more time. Democracy gives power to the people. Beautiful. You are doing so well. You really are.
Let me tell you the second story now. A different kind of story. A story of a man named Victor. Victor was a German soldier. He was 23 years old when the Second World War began. He came from a small town in Bavaria. He had grown up in the years of Hitler's rise. He had been part of the Hitler Youth, a youth organization that trained young Germans to be loyal to the Nazi state. He had been taught from childhood that Hitler was great, that the German people were destined for greatness, that the enemies Hitler named were truly enemies. Victor believed it. He genuinely believed it, because it was all he had ever been taught. He went to war believing he was doing the right thing. But as the years passed, as Victor witnessed things on the Eastern Front that he could not unsee, something inside him began to crack. He saw suffering that no ideology could justify. He watched innocent people, families, treated as though their lives had no value. And slowly, painfully, the beliefs he had been raised with began to crumble. By 1944, Victor was a broken man, not physically, but inside. He no longer believed in what he was fighting for. He no longer recognized the world he was living in as something that matched any version of goodness he had once been taught to value.
When the war ended, Victor survived. He went home, and he spent the rest of his life, decades, trying to understand how it had happened, how he had been shaped into someone who followed, without question, a path of hatred. He became a teacher. He dedicated his life to educating young people about how propaganda works, about how ordinary people can be led into terrible things when they stop questioning, when they stop thinking critically, when they choose comfort over truth. Victor's story is not a story of a monster. It is a story of a human being caught in a current too strong for him to swim against at first, and then slowly, painfully, finding his way back to shore. And his story matters because it reminds us that most of the people who participated in terrible things in history were not born evil. They were shaped, they were taught, they were manipulated. And understanding that does not excuse what happened, but it does help us understand how it happened.
And understanding how is the first step toward prevention. Let's continue the history now. Take a breath with me. Good. By the late 1930s, Hitler's Germany had begun implementing policies of increasing horror. Jewish people in Germany were stripped of their citizenship. They were banned from professions. They were forced to wear identifying symbols in public. Their businesses were destroyed. Their synagogues were burned. Their rights were taken, one by one, in a slow, calculated, deliberate process. And the world watched. Some countries protested, but not enough, not strongly enough. In September 1939, Germany invaded Poland. This began the Second World War. Within 2 years, Nazi Germany had conquered most of Western Europe. France had fallen. Britain was standing alone under relentless aerial bombardment, refusing to surrender. And in 1941, Hitler made what many historians consider the most catastrophic strategic decision of the war. He invaded the Soviet Union, a massive, brutal campaign on the Eastern Front that eventually ground German forces down in the ice and snow of Russian winters. At the same time, within the territories Germany controlled, something was happening that defies adequate description with words. The Holocaust. The Holocaust was the systematic, deliberate, industrial murder of 6 million Jewish people, along with millions of others: Roma people, disabled people, political prisoners, gay people, anyone Hitler's regime considered undesirable. They were rounded up. They were transported in overcrowded trains. They were taken to concentration camps, and there they were killed in numbers that stagger the human mind. 6 million Jewish people alone, 6 million lives, 6 million stories, 6 million faces, 6 million futures that were taken. I want to say that number again slowly, because numbers of that size can feel abstract, but each one was a person, a real, living, breathing person who had a name, who had people who loved them, who had dreams, who had a favorite food, who had a laugh that someone somewhere would have recognized immediately. 6 million. And the world did not know the full scale of what was happening. Some suspected, some looked away, some tried to help, and some risked everything to save lives.
The tide of the war began to turn. After the disastrous German invasion of the Soviet Union stalled and reversed,
After the United States entered the war in December 1941 following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. After the Allied forces landed in Normandy, France on June 6, 1944, one of the most famous military operations in history, the end began to come into view. D-Day, June 6, 1944. 150,000 Allied soldiers crossed the English Channel and landed on the beaches of northern France. It was the largest seaborne invasion in the history of warfare, and it was the beginning of the liberation of Western Europe from Nazi occupation. Slowly, painfully, at enormous cost, the Allied armies pushed toward Germany from the west. The Soviet forces pushed from the east. Germany was being squeezed from both sides.
Now say it with me. The Holocaust was one of the greatest crimes in human history. Say it slowly. The Holocaust was one of the greatest crimes in human history. Take a breath. The word systematic. 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 Systematic means done according to a plan, in an organized, step-by-step way. The Holocaust was not random violence. It was planned. It was organized. It was a deliberate system. That is what makes it so uniquely terrifying. It was not chaos. It was design. When cruelty becomes systematic, it becomes almost incomprehensible, because we expect evil to be messy. We expect it to have cracks and contradictions. But when evil is organized, efficient, bureaucratic, it reaches a scale that is almost impossible for the human mind to fully absorb. Repeat slowly after me. Systematic means done according to an organized plan. One more time. Systematic means done according to an organized plan. Good. Very good. By early 1945, it was clear the war was lost. German cities were in ruins. Resources were exhausted. The army was collapsing. The dream, the terrible, monstrous dream, was ending. And Adolf Hitler, he did not face justice. He did not stand before a court. He did not answer for what he had done. On April 30th, 1945, in a bunker beneath the ruined city of Berlin, as Soviet forces closed in above, Adolf Hitler took his own life. He was 56 years old. 1 week later, Germany surrendered. The war in Europe was over, and the world emerged from the ruins to begin the long, painful, incomplete work of understanding what had happened, of counting the dead, of rebuilding what had been destroyed, of confronting the horror and trying to find a way to go on. The Nuremberg trials, held between 1945 and 1946, senior members of the Nazi leadership were put on trial for war crimes, for crimes against humanity. It was one of the first times in history that the leaders of a government were held accountable in court for what they had done. Many were convicted, some were executed, others received prison sentences. The Nuremberg trials established a principle that still matters today, that there are crimes so terrible, so fundamental a violation of human dignity, that no person, no government, no ideology can justify them. That the claim, "I was just following orders," is not an acceptable defense for participating in atrocity. That was a new idea, in a way, and it was an important one, because the alternative is a world where anyone can do anything as long as they are told to by someone in authority. And we must not, ever accept that world. Repeat slowly after me. The Nuremberg trials held Nazi leaders accountable for crimes against humanity. Say it gently. The Nuremberg trials held Nazi leaders accountable for crimes against humanity. Take a breath. Now say it with me one final time. No person and no government can justify crimes against humanity. One more time, with feeling. No person and no government can justify crimes against humanity. Yes, you said that beautifully. So what do we take from all of this, my friend? What do we carry with us when we close this chapter of history and step back into our own lives? I think we carry several things. We carry the knowledge that hatred is learned, it is taught, it is cultivated. It does not grow naturally in the human heart. Children are not born hating. They are taught to hate, which means that hatred can also be unlearned, that the cycle can be broken, that education, compassion, and exposure to different perspectives can undo what fear and propaganda have built. We carry the understanding that democracy is fragile, that it requires active participation, that it requires people to pay attention, to question, to vote, to speak, to hold leaders accountable. Democracy does not maintain itself automatically. It needs tending, like a garden, like a living thing. It needs our constant, careful attention. We carry the reminder that ordinary people matter, that history is not only made by the powerful, that the quiet heroism of a teacher in a basement, a soldier who eventually found his conscience, a neighbor who hid someone at risk to their own life, matters, that individual choices made by individual people collectively shape the world. And we carry the imperative of memory, to remember, to keep the stories alive, to say the names of those who were lost, to refuse to let the enormity of what happened fade into comfortable distance. Because memory is how we honor the dead, and memory is how we protect the living. And now, my friend, I want to speak to you directly, as a friend, as someone who has walked this entire story alongside you today. You might be wondering, why is this on an English channel? Why is a language lesson about something so heavy? And my answer is this. Language is not just about grammar. It is not just about vocabulary. It is not just about pronunciation. Language is about understanding, about connection, about being able to engage with the world in all its complexity, including the difficult parts, including the painful parts, including the parts that require us to sit with discomfort so that we can come out the other side wiser. When you learn English, you are not just learning a tool for travel or work or passing a test. You are gaining access to one of the world's most widely used bridges of communication. You are gaining the ability to read the stories of people whose lives were completely different from yours, to understand the news, to engage in conversations that matter, to argue for justice, to speak up for what is right. That is a profound privilege, and you are earning it one lesson at a time. So, I want you to know something I mean with complete sincerity. I am proud of you.
I am proud of you for choosing to learn, for choosing to grow, for choosing to sit with this story today and let it teach you. Not just English words, but something about the human experience, something about what happens when we fail to pay attention, and something about what is possible when we choose, actively, consciously, every day, to be better. You are building something real, something lasting, and I see it. I see you building it. Take a breath now, a long, gentle breath.
Feel the air come in. Feel your body settle. Feel the weight of this story sitting in your chest, not crushing you, just making you more aware, more awake, more alive to the responsibility we all share. Because knowing this history and carrying it with you means you are part of the solution. You are part of the circle of people who understand, who remember, who will, in your own small and beautiful ways, make sure that the lessons of the past are not forgotten. And that matters more than you might realize.
Before we close today, I want to give you a few more words. Slowly, carefully. The word resilience. Resilience. Say it softly. Resilience. Resilience means the ability to recover from difficulty, to be knocked down and find the strength to stand up again. The survivors of this period in history showed unimaginable resilience. The countries that were destroyed and rebuilt showed resilience. The families that lost everything and somehow found a way to continue showed resilience. And you, my friend, in your own way, show resilience every time you sit down to learn, every time you feel like giving up and you don't. Every time you feel like your English is too slow, too limited, too imperfect, and you keep going anyway. That is resilience. Repeat slowly after me. Resilience means the ability to recover from difficulty and keep going. Say it again. Resilience means the ability to recover from difficulty and keep going. Good. Now take a breath. And the final word for today, legacy. Legacy. Leg-e-see. Say it gently. Legacy. Legacy means what you leave behind, what remains after you are gone, the impact of your life on the world, on the people around you. Adolf Hitler's legacy is one of destruction, hatred, and unimaginable suffering. It is a warning, a monument to what happens when humanity fails itself. But the legacy of the people who resisted, the people who helped, the people who remembered, the people who rebuilt, that legacy is different. That legacy is one of courage, of love, of the stubborn, undefeatable insistence that human life has value. What kind of legacy do you want to leave? Even in small ways, even in your corner of the world, even in the quiet choices you make every single day. Because every life leaves something behind. Every person touches other people. Every act of kindness, every word of encouragement, every moment of genuine connection becomes part of someone's story, part of the world's story, and the story you contribute that is yours to write. Now say it with me one last time. Legacy means what we leave behind for the world. Beautiful, truly beautiful. My friend, we have covered so much ground today. We have traveled back to 1889. We have walked through the pain of a young man's rejection and the poison that grew from it. We have seen how one person's hatred, amplified by propaganda, enabled by desperation, and unchallenged by a world that waited too long, can reshape history in the most terrible of ways. We have met Maria, the teacher who kept learning alive in the darkness. We have met Victor, the soldier who found his conscience after it was almost too late. We have spoken the names of processes and trials and agreements, and we have slowed down long enough to let them mean something. We have practiced 5 times together. We have breathed. We have felt. We have grown. And now, as this lesson draws to a close, I want to invite you to do something small. Leave a comment below. Write just one sentence about what this story made you think about what word or phrase stayed with you, about how you felt listening, about something you already knew or something that surprised you. Because your voice matters, your perspective matters, and this channel, this space, it is built for you, for people like you who are brave enough to sit with difficult things and let them make you wiser. If this lesson helped you, if it moved you, if it made you feel even a little bit more connected to the world and to history and to the English language, please share it with someone who needs it. Press the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we are building something together here, a community of thoughtful, curious, brave English learners who believe that language opens doors that would otherwise remain closed. And I want you to be part of that. You belong here. You have always belonged here. So breathe one last time with me now. In and out. You did something real today. You showed up. You listened. You stayed with a story that was not easy, and you let it teach you. That takes something. That takes a kind of inner strength that not everyone has. But you have it. I know you do, because you are here. The world needs people who know this history, who carry it not as a burden, but as a compass, as a reminder of where we have been, so we can be more intentional about where we are going. You are one of those people now, a little more than you were at the beginning of this lesson. And tomorrow, you will be a little more again. That is how growth works, slowly, quietly, one small step at a time. I am so glad you spent this time with me today. I will see you in the next slow listening lesson, my friend.